Happy Friday. Sure, we're all excited, even though there's plenty of you who are clocking in for your weekend to work, so sucks to suck, sorry. But at least you're here with me today, so that's a good time. Is old school really better? I've heard this a lot, and it's been picking back up lately, where you'll have an issue with a provider, and people are like, oh, well, they're just old school. To which my response is, who gives a fuck? That has zero bearing on the decisions they made. Like, I don't care. And no, that's not to say that anybody who's old school is bad. It's just experience is a double-edged sword. Yes, years of service gives you the opportunity to gain lots of wisdom, but it can also create and reinforce some really bad fucking habits. And that's where I have a problem with that mentality of, oh, well, that's just the way we used to do things. Well, we used to do a lot of things that actually killed patients. It wasn't that long ago that we were giving saline boluses to hypotensive trauma patients when really all we're doing is turning their blood into Kool-Aid and killing them faster. And it's just simple stuff like that. We have modern technology at our disposal. Let's fucking use it. I'm not going to pronounce somebody dead without using the cardiac monitor unless, their body's in several different places. I'm just not. I'm not going to pronounce that. It's not that I can't identify someone who is clearly deceased. And this is your job. Like, this is a tool that you can use to legally pronounce and confirm someone is deceased. And that's just one example of it. A lot of people pull out you can't give pain management to abdominal pain. That is so fucking outdated. So fucking outdated. And has been proven or disproven, really, so many times. It doesn't fucking matter. If you're pain, and really all it is now, people actually know better. I don't think that it's a question of people's intelligence. I think it's a laziness thing. It's an out so that, I don't have to break the narc seal for this patient, so they can just suck it up. And sure, there's plenty of people that are highly overdramatic and hypochondriacs, and I'm not just gonna, break the narc seal, willy-nilly because someone just asks. Sorry, you're not getting narcotics for a stub toe. Not gonna happen. Sorry. That'd be irresponsible of me as a clinician to, fucking pain medicate and possibly sedate you for stub toe. Not going to happen. Sorry. But in general, we should be more liberal with our treatments. And here's the thing I look at is, okay, sure, you can make the argument of, well, let's just get them to the hospital. There are some things where that is true. If you're having a stroke, I can't fucking fix you in the field. I fucking can't. Sorry. So high flow diesel it is. But we have a lot of tools at our disposal to render aid to patients and start their care earlier. If you want to be respected, you need to do respectable things as an industry. So if we have the ability to render care and there's an appropriate situation for it, then fucking do it. Fucking do it. It's not complicated. Did you, is it a life-saving intervention to give someone fluids and Zofran? Well, no. Not directly. But we have them for a reason. So something that I typically see a lot of the old school mentality is trying to get out of doing the more specialized, like secondary and tertiary treatments, which I think is twofold. One, I think it's general laziness, not wanting to do more work, but also it's an intellectual laziness. I'm not keeping up to date on medicine, so I'm just going to fall back on, my years of service to justify lazy medicine. Or really to justify ignorance that maybe you don't actually know. It's a lot better to be honest with people about what you don't know than to just play it off like you have some kind of moral high ground, because that doesn't fucking work. So another issue with the whole, old school mentality is just because you have a lot of years in doesn't mean those were quality years. Because sure, you may have been a medic for 20 years, but if you worked at a service where you ran like one call every 24 hours and only every other one of those calls you had to do ALS skills, you're a lot less skilled as a clinician than someone who has been a medic for 3 years working in a busier system, whether they're urban or just a much busier rural service. So just measuring years on its own doesn't mean fuck all. And I understand the, well, you need to respect the people that came before you in the field. I get that. Sort of. You need to be respectable. If you're someone who's been in this job 30, 40 years and you're a dick to everybody, I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. You need to leave. Because clearly you don't give a damn about fixing your attitude. You've been doing this for however fucking long. You don't care. Leave. Go work at Walmart. Go work at a gas station. There's no need to be like this. And there's no justification for it. There's no years of service that justifies you being just a shitbag human being to people. Hate to break it to you, but that's the reality. And what really matters, it's not how long you've held on for the ride, but it's how relevant you have stayed. And I am not advocating that we need to spend, 3 hours every day studying medical journals and reviewing textbooks. No. But be in tune with things and also be willing to admit that you're wrong or that you are out of date on something when confronted with facts. There's been times, even recently, where Michelle and I will be discussing something or a treatment modality or whatever, and I'll say, well, my reasoning was this and this and this, and she's like, yeah, we don't teach that anymore. I'm like, but why? And she'll educate me. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fair. Like I respect that and I appreciate that, and I try my best to adapt as best I can because medicine evolves so fucking fast. There's so many changes. Even just in my career in the past 13 plus years, there's been significant changes. There's a story I grew up hearing. It was about a gentleman in the 60s named Donald Knuth. He's considered like the godfather of computer science. And back in the 60s, he attempted to write a comprehensive series of books about computer science. Well, by the time he finished the first book, there was already content in it that was outdated. And he had to go back and revise. And each one, he only made 4 out of like 7 books because he just, he couldn't keep up with it. Medicine's no different. There's nothing about medicine that is static. It is constantly evolving, constantly changing. So by staying relevant in medicine, you actually earn respect that way. I'm a firm believer that respect is not just this like de facto thing that because years in, respect out. Like that equation doesn't work. Not in EMS. It's not like well, let's use the example of I'd say okay, carpentry. Yeah, sure, carpentry has some cool tools, has some neat things that have developed over the last however many years. But at the end of the day, being carpenter is being carpenter. Sure, there's a lot of different specialties and skill sets and whatnot wrapped in that, but carpentry itself, a lot of the core principles don't change. So this isn't true for every single field, but when it comes to medicine, being an expert requires regular updated input, not just doing the reps over and over and over again. Yes, doing the reps is important. When it comes to skills, obviously, as much as you can get your hands on your skills and do them over and over, awesome, perfect, great, let's go for it. But you also need to be updating and progressive in your mindset and be willing to say, hey, I don't have it all figured out, and maybe this thing that I just assumed or took for granted isn't actually that good or even right anymore. And that takes a lot of humility to be able to do that. I was very fortunate that the paramedic who was my capstone preceptor, he had been a paramedic since 1977. And when I was going through my capstone with him, it was 2016. So a lot of years doing a lot of things. And he flat out told me, he said, you being in school, There are certain things that you are actually going to be significantly better at than me. When I first went through paramedic school, cardiology was bare bones, and our equipment was bare bones. He said 12 leads was something I had to learn midway through my career. So he's like, so I trust your input and your insight on 12 lead interpretation a lot more than my own, because you have actually had significantly more like concentrated training on it than I ever got. And I've always respected him for saying that. Like, someone like him brings so much value because he maintained the proper mentality and humility that you need to succeed in this career. He was a smart man. Like, I don't mean to say or imply that he wasn't, not at all. But his attitude was, hey, I don't have all the answers. And he's not the only person I've ever worked with that was like that. Like, the best partners I've ever had that same mentality. Not fluffing myself up. Their mentality was, I want to learn from newer people. My years of service is not a stick to beat people over the head with. So, seasoned providers, take an honest inventory of yourself. How up to date on medicine are you? And I'm not just talking about, have you renewed your pocket cards? No. How up to date on medicine are you actually? How up to date is your understanding of medicine, of current treatment trends, of of protocols, even the areas surrounding you? How up to date are you on that stuff? That's what makes the difference on what kind of a provider you're going to be. If you're able to function currently and correctly, not just, oh my God, I'm here, I've survived for 30 years. Because there's a lot of 30-year medics that have just repeated their first year over and over and over again. So, key takeaway, stay relevant with medicine. Don't just hang on for the ride. If you find that you're hanging on for the ride, then either get off the ride or brush up on your weaknesses. That's all I got. You guys be safe. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.